Throughout history, empires have risen on wealth, trade, and financial strategy. From Rome to America, the health of an empire is measured not just by armies but by money management. In this journey, we explore the 7 financial mistakes that have repeatedly toppled great civilizations. Empires often expand faster than their economies can sustain. Rome's territorial conquests brought wealth but also massive expenditures, overextending resources and creating vulnerabilities. Borrowing can fuel growth, but excessive debt cripples nations. Ancient Rome borrowed from allies and conquered lands, while modern nations risk similar pitfalls through unchecked borrowing. When empires reduce the value of their currency to cover expenses, inflation rises. Rome's coinage debasement eroded public trust, a lesson mirrored in modern financial crises. Empires fall when wealth concentrates in the hands of a few. Rome's widening gap between rich and poor caused social unrest, weakening the empire's financial stability. Military might ensure security, but excessive spending can drain resources. Rome spent enormous wealth on legions, eventually diverting funds from infrastructure and public services. Financial stability collapses when leaders prioritize personal gain over the state. Corruption in Rome diverted resources, weakened institutions, and set the stage for decline. Empires stagnate when they resist economic innovation. Rome's reliance on traditional agriculture and tribute slowed growth, while dynamic trade networks and emerging powers outpaced them. America, like Rome, faces similar pressures: massive debt, economic inequality, and dependence on expansionist policies. History may not repeat, but it often rhymes. Understanding these 7 financial mistakes is essential. By studying the collapse of empires, we gain insight into economic sustainability, governance, and the warning signs that precede decline. Rome relied on territorial expansion to generate wealth, but conquest came with immense administrative costs. Provinces were difficult to govern, and military supply chains drained resources. Similarly, the United States maintains global military bases and interventions, consuming trillions in resources. Overextension risks weakening domestic infrastructure and economic resilience. Rome borrowed heavily from allies and conquered territories, issuing coins backed by minimal reserves. Debt fueled immediate needs but undermined long-term stability. Today, America's national debt exceeds $33 trillion. Borrowing drives growth but creates risks if economic output fails to keep pace. Echoing the Roman example, to cover expenses, Roman emperors reduced silver content in coins. Inflation soared, public trust eroded, and market stability collapsed. America faces inflation pressures through quantitative easing and overprinting while mechanisms differ. The lesson remains: unchecked currency manipulation destabilizes economies. In Rome, wealth concentrated among elites while peasants struggled. Social unrest rose, weakening political cohesion and economic productivity. America mirrors this pattern with widening income gaps. The top 1% controls vast wealth, while middle and lower classes face stagnant wages, creating political and economic strain. Rome prioritized legions over public projects. Roads, aqueducts, and infrastructure suffered, making the empire vulnerable to internal decay. America's defense budget exceeds $900 billion annually. Balancing security with investment in infrastructure, education, and healthcare remains a crucial challenge. Rome's financial stability crumbled under the weight of corruption. Senators and officials prioritized personal wealth over state welfare, diverting funds meant for public services and defense. Corruption caused infrastructure decay, weak military leadership, and loss of public trust. Rome's citizens grew disillusioned, eroding the empire's social and financial cohesion. In America, lobbying, corporate influence, and political favoritism impact financial decisions. Policies sometimes benefit a few while burdening taxpayers, echoing Rome's errors. Rome's economy relied heavily on agriculture and tribute rather than innovation. Technological and economic advancements slowed, leaving the empire unable to adapt to changing circumstances. Stagnation limited Rome's growth potential. Trade slowed, industries collapsed, and the empire became vulnerable to external threats and internal decay. America thrives on innovation, but over-reliance on traditional sectors and slow adaptation in certain industries can threaten economic dominance. Highlighting the lessons from Rome, when empires mismanage finances, social unrest rises. In Rome, bread riots and public dissatisfaction were frequent, directly linked to poor economic policies and corruption. America faces growing inequality, urban unrest, and economic discontent. Failure to address these issues may weaken financial and societal stability over time. Rome's collapse teaches us to monitor debt, inflation, corruption, and inequality. Ignoring these factors makes even the most powerful nations vulnerable. By learning from history, modern economies like America can strengthen institutions, encourage innovation, and maintain social trust, preventing the mistakes that toppled Rome. Rome's financial errors directly weakened its military. Inadequate funding, corruption, and overextension left legions underpaid and poorly equipped, compromising defense. America's vast defense budget is efficient in many ways, but overspending in certain areas while neglecting cybersecurity and domestic security can create vulnerabilities. Echoing Rome's mistakes, Rome's declining trade routes and corruption in tax collection reduced economic efficiency. Ports fell into disrepair and trade slowed, starving the empire of vital wealth. America's trade deficits and reliance on global supply chains make it vulnerable to economic shocks. Protectionism or financial mismanagement can ripple across the economy. Financial mismanagement in Rome eroded cultural institutions, public entertainment, education, and arts suffered, reducing citizen engagement and societal cohesion. Budget cuts, misallocation, and economic inequality can weaken cultural institutions in modern America, undermining education, arts, and public engagement. As resources shrink and inequality rises, social unrest becomes inevitable. Rome experienced riots, rebellions, and civil wars, further draining its financial and military power. Modern America faces protests, civil unrest, and political polarization when economic inequality and perceived corruption rise, reflecting Rome's historical pattern. Financial errors amplify governance challenges. Corruption, debt, and inequality weaken state institutions, creating a feedback loop of decline, as seen in Rome's late empire. Effective governance and financial transparency are crucial. Learning from Rome, modern economies must ensure that public funds are allocated wisely, social trust is maintained, and institutions remain strong. Empires rarely collapse overnight. Subtle signs: financial mismanagement, inflation, inequality emerge years before visible decline. Rome and America offer lessons in recognizing these patterns early. Rome's debt to provincial revenues grew unchecked, limiting flexibility in crises. In modern economies, the debt-to-GDP ratio signals potential fiscal stress and unsustainable borrowing. Rome's debasement of coins triggered inflation, eroding public trust. Today, inflation trends and currency instability remain key indicators of financial fragility. When wealth concentrates in the hands of a few, social unrest rises. Rome faced riots. Modern America faces rising inequality, signaling potential instability if unaddressed. Rome's mismanagement and corruption eroded institutional strength. Modern governments face similar risks if transparency and accountability are neglected. Rome's military overreach drained resources. Monitoring defense commitments and ensuring sustainable military spending is a critical warning sign for modern nations. Economic stagnation, whether in trade, technology, or infrastructure, weakens empires. Rome fell behind in innovation. Modern nations risk similar stagnation in certain sectors. Public trust is an early warning indicator. Rome's citizens lost faith in leadership and currency. Modern economies rely on consumer confidence, which reflects societal resilience. Financial mistakes rarely act alone. Debt, corruption, inequality, and military overspending combine to accelerate decline. Rome's collapse is a blueprint for understanding compounded risks. By recognizing these warning signs early, modern nations can adjust policies, promote economic resilience, and prevent the repetition of history. Awareness and proactive governance are key. The story of Rome's rise and fall is more than history, it's a warning. By understanding the financial mistakes that toppled one of the greatest empires, we can assess modern America and other global powers. Rome's collapse can be traced to 7 key errors: over-reliance on expansion, excessive debt, currency devaluation, inequality, military overspending, corruption, and failure to innovate. These mistakes, individually and collectively, undermined the empire. America faces similar challenges: high national debt, wealth inequality, political polarization, and global military commitments. Recognizing these parallels allows leaders and citizens to act before history repeats itself. Monitoring debt, inflation, and currency stability is essential. Sound fiscal policies, transparent spending, and balanced budgets are the foundation of sustainable empires. Rome stagnated while new powers innovated. Modern nations must prioritize technological advancement, diversified trade, and economic creativity to remain competitive and resilient. Empires fail when citizens feel disenfranchised. Addressing inequality, promoting education, and maintaining public trust are vital to prevent unrest and preserve societal stability. Strong institutions and accountability prevent the diversion of resources. Rome's corruption accelerated decline. Modern leaders must ensure transparency, integrity, and equitable policymaking. A sustainable defense strategy balances national security with economic health. Rome's overextended armies drained resources. Modern nations must avoid similar pitfalls through careful planning. Empires that fail to learn from history risk repeating it. By studying Rome's mistakes, we gain tools to navigate financial crises, safeguard societies, and ensure long-term stability. From Rome to America, the lessons are clear. Financial mismanagement, inequality, corruption, and stagnation are universal threats. Understanding the past empowers us to secure the future because history's greatest secrets are preserved in the financial time capsule.